Okie doke, Monday. Ooh, it feels good to be making videos again. As anyone who follows this channel knows, I took kind of last week and definitely the week before that off because I had a trip to Minnesota and I had to go film a commercial, and that whole week was hectic. And then the week after, which was last week, was really, it was a lot. But I'm back on a regular schedule. Hopefully, I'm gonna try to have a video out today, which today is Monday. It's technically my lunch break at work, but I'm taking a little bit of time to just make a quick video for you guys because I've had so many people ask me, how do you edit your photos? I've got a little over 1,000 followers on Instagram, and I get messages all the time from those people on my stories and on my posts and in my DMs and all sorts of stuff about how did you take this photo? How did you edit? That's what this video is about. This video today, it's finally happening. We're talking about how I take my photos and how I edit my photos for Instagram. Let's get into it. Honestly, I still don't know why I do, because I still don't have an intro. I need an intro. Somebody make me an intro. Okay, so first things first, let's talk about gear. I shoot with this camera. This is the Canon 6D Mark II. This battery grip actually doesn't belong to me. It belongs to my wife. I'm borrowing it because she doesn't use it, and I like it. So I'm using this. I have 3 main lenses that I shoot my photos with. I have a 16-35 2.8. the Mark I version. I have a 50mm 1.8, the Mark II version, and then I have the 35mm 1.4 Mark I version, which is actually what I'm filming this video with right now. But regardless of what gear you are using, this video will apply to all of you, whether you're taking photos with your camera or with your phone or with a GoPro or anything like that. This video applies to all of them, so don't stop watching just yet. I feel it's important to mention that gear doesn't always matter. Will having a better camera, will having nicer lenses, will that yield a better photo in the long run? Yes, absolutely. It's just a fact of life. However, you can still take really good photos with your cell phone or with whatever you have at your disposal. Even if it's not an expensive camera or an expensive lens, if you have a good eye for it and you have a good idea of how to edit photos, you can still take and post really great photos. I heard someone say once, and this is kind of a caveat, but anyways, I heard somebody say, you don't walk up to a house, a beautiful house that's just been built and erected out of the ground or whatever, and say, wow, what a beautiful house. That carpenter must have had a nice hammer. Like, you don't do that. Or go to a beautiful restaurant and have a delicious dinner and say, wow, your chef must have a really nice oven. People don't do that just because it's not the way the world works. In reality, it's not dependent on the gear that you have. It's dependent on your ability to use the gear that you have, whether it be good gear or bad gear. Learn your camera, learn your editing software to get you a lot farther than any camera ever will. So as I've mentioned many times before on this channel, when I'm taking photos, I really like to shoot through things. This goes for video as well, but specifically for photos, I really like to shoot through things. You know, shoot through a plant to get a little bit of color that's maybe accenting the image, or shoot through a prism, or shoot off of a CD or off of a phone screener over somebody's shoulder looking down at a mug. This is the style of shooting that I prefer. You can see it in almost all of my images that I post on Instagram, but it's just kind of the way that I like it. It really helps accentuate the subject of your photo. Also, I shoot in full manual all the time. I never shoot in aperture priority or anything other than manual. I personally want to have full control of my ISO, aperture, shutter speed, and my white balance. I know some people who shoot manual, you know, ISO, aperture, and shutter speed, and then they leave their white balance on auto, which makes 0 sense to me. Just go over to the K or Kelvin, adjust your white balance there. It's going to help you get the photo that you see instead of the photo that your camera's trying to produce with its automatic, you know, generated sensors or whatever. So once I've taken the photo, I use this little guy. Now, I've talked about this before in some of my earlier videos, but this is an SD card adapter. Plugs in right there in your phone, and then you pop the SD card right there, and it pulls up all the images on your phone, and you can import them directly. So you don't have to have your laptop or your iPad or use the Wi-Fi on your camera or anything like that. It's really simple. Fits in your pocket, fits in your camera bag. Anytime that I go out and I'm shooting just for fun, just for kicks and gigs, I take this little guy with me and I just keep it in my pocket. I don't even leave it in the camera bag because then it's just a hassle to get to, because a lot of times I'll be shooting photos and I'll look down and I'll get like a really banger shot, and I'll say, okay, okay, on to the next location. As I'm walking to the next location, I just pull this little guy out, pop it in my phone, put the SD card in there, and I'm editing as I'm walking to the next spot. So that brings me to the next step in my photo taking editing process, which is the editing part. So I edit almost exclusively in VSCO or VSCO, however you want to say it. It's a free app that you can find in the App Store for Samsung devices or iPhone. I personally use an iPhone just because I think they're better, to each his own, but that's what I use for most of my images. Now, if I'm doing a bigger job, let's say like a wedding or a corporate event or something like that, a lot of times I'll use Lightroom because you can get a little bit more nitty-gritty with S-curves and your shadows and highlights and that sort of stuff. But when it comes to Instagram, when it comes to having a consistent look on my Instagram feed, on my Instagram profile, I use VSCO. It's just a lot easier for me to find a look that works for me and nail it almost every single time I take a photo. Also, I really like to shoot near windows or near natural light. Anytime I ever go somewhere and I'm shooting photos, let's say for a business or a brand, or I'm shooting anything for myself personally, you can see it in a lot of my Instagram photos. I take photos near the window just because window light is naturally diffused, and natural light just looks a lot better than, say, the lights that are hanging in the building, or an artificial light, let's say like a light with a softbox dome or anything like that. Natural light to me just looks a lot better. So more often than not, I try to get as close to a window as I can for that. Now for videos, I found that natural light doesn't always give you the best look because you don't have control. So I do use a light with a softbox to get this look for my videos. Next, we come to the actual editing part. So I have paid for VSCO-X, which basically is a $20 a year subscription with VSCO, which gives you full access to every single preset VSCO has to offer. As well, you can edit videos in VSCO as well. I don't really edit videos in VSCO. I like to be a bit more nitty gritty with each of my individual shots, but if that's something you're into, if you're just shooting, one full-length shot and you don't mind throwing like a preset or something like that on it, it's just an added feature of VSCO-X. But $20 a year, definitely worth it. I mean, $20, that's dinner with your girlfriend or with your wife or boyfriend or whoever. I'm not saying sacrifice dinner with your better half for VSCO-X. I'm just trying to, please don't do that. Please, nobody comment or email me about how their fiance or husband or whoever didn't take them to dinner because they spent that money on VSCO-X. Please don't do that. So there are two main presets that are kind of my go-tos when it comes to Instagram. Again, this all kind of goes around trying to keep my feed as cohesive on Instagram as possible. I don't fully recommend using presets for every single photo that you take, but if you're using Instagram as a tool to promote your work and you want to keep that feed looking as consistent as possible, then maybe it is in your best interest to find a preset that works for you, and that be a starting point when it comes to editing your photos. So my two go-to presets are A6 and C8. A6 is more of kind of a moody, kind of grungy look, and honestly, I've used A6 almost exclusively for probably the past 2 years on my Instagram. Now, I can edit it, I can tweak it with the temperature and that sort of stuff, and find various looks for various photos, but for the most part, A6 is always my go-to. Now, C8 is a relatively new development. I didn't even know about this preset until probably 5 weeks ago. I just kind of stumbled across it because I was trying to edit a little differently for a brand that I was working for, and it has a very orange and teal kind of look. But if you take the preset after you've applied it to your photo and you dial it back just a little bit, you can kind of start to craft something that's not too extreme, orange and teal or whatever. You can kind of find something that matches a bit more your style, a bit more what you're going for. So I exclusively shoot Canon cameras because I really like the way that the colors natively straight out of camera look. So I don't really have to do a whole lot of adjusting in order to find the look that I want. Generally, all I really have to do is adjust my exposure a little bit if I want to. Maybe if I didn't completely nail it in camera, I can just adjust it to match the look of my feed. Or sometimes I have to go into temperature or the tint and kind of adjust a little bit there to make sure that the photo that I'm about to take and I'm about to post does line up and match up with most everything else that's on my page, so it doesn't stand out or stick out like a sore thumb. Also, this is just a teeny tiny little trick that I do to create the look for my profile. There are 3 things specifically that I bump up just a little bit, just enough to kind of create a look that's synonymous with my profile. Number 1 is grain. I just bump it up just a little bit, just enough to where you kind of see it a little bit. It gives it a little bit of a filmic kind of look. Number 2 is fade. I'll bring it up just enough to kind of like accentuate maybe the blacks and the shadows and that sort of stuff, just to kind of give it a teeny tiny little bit of a washed out look. And number 3 is vignette. Now, I don't do a vignette on every single photo that I take, but every now and again I'll see something and I'll just say, you know what? I feel like if I add a little bit of darkness on the outside, it'll just help push the viewer's attention that much more towards the subject. And that's pretty much it. I try to keep my edits as small and as minimal as possible because I don't want to take away from what the camera has already produced for me or what my eyes saw in that moment. The last thing that I always do to my photographs is go ahead and crop them for Instagram. Now, some people do horizontal and vertical. Some people just do horizontal. Some people just do vertical. Me personally, I just do vertical photos or portrait style photos. The reason being is because that takes up the most amount of real estate on somebody's feed when they're scrolling through. When they're seeing, 16:9 videos of somebody playing drums or maybe, a square shape of a video of somebody making a cake or something like that. And then you get to my photo and it's just this huge portrait photo on your page. It stands out and it makes you take a second and say, that's a nice photograph. So I always crop my photos 4:5. If you crop your photo anything different than that and you try to make it full size on Instagram, it's going to natively crop it 4:5. Unless it's landscape, in which case I think it varies. I think you can do 16:9 or something like that. But as far as portrait photos go, it's always going to crop it 4:5. Okay, so the last thing that I do in VSCO before I export my photo is I go to the HSL tab and I go through and just make sure that all of my colors are looking the best that they can possibly look. Sometimes in photos, you'll have something that's like really blue and you're like, that's just a bit too blue for me. In the HSL tab, you can go select the blue. You can either adjust the hue, you can adjust the saturation, or you can adjust the luminance. Hue is obviously going to make it more teal or more really blue. Saturation is, it's saturation. It's going to bring the color in or bring the color out. And then luminance is what's going to decide how much that color pops, if it's really bright or if it's really muted. Go in, make sure all the colors are where they need to be. If you're shooting an orange and teal photo and there's something in the background that's purple, it's probably best to go ahead and go select that purple and either bring it all the way down or bring it most of the way down. That way it's not taking away from your photograph. Okay, so you've done all your edits. Now it's time to export your photo and then we're going to re-import it into an app called Lens Distortions. Lens Distortions is a really popular app that a lot of people these days are using. It's a free app and all it does is it allows you to add things like light leaks or maybe like rays of light or something like that. Let's say you shot a photo on an iPhone or something like that and there's not a whole lot of depth in front of your subject like we were talking about before, which you can typically get with a DSLR. Lens Distortions gives you the option to do that. You can find little things like rain or clouds or even like fake prisms and you can add them in there. You can turn them and twist them and drop the opacity and change the color and everything that you need to do to make it to where it matches up with your photo, but it gives it a little bit of depth. It looks like that you were actually shooting past something towards your subject. Now, I don't always use this app, but I definitely felt like it was worth mentioning for this video, especially if you're watching this and you take all of your photos with an iPhone. Don't go crazy with it, don't go overboard, because it will be really obvious that you were using an external app, and that's not what we're going for. We're not going for obvious. We want people to just look at it and just naturally say, wow, that's a great photo. Give it a double tap and keep scrolling. All right, so now that you've done VSCO, now that you've done Lens Distortions, all of those other things, you're pretty much done. Now it's just time to go ahead and drop your photo on Instagram. Make sure that you are uploading the full-size photo on Instagram because squares are done. People don't need to see squares anymore. They gave us the option for full images like years ago. You should be uploading the full-size image. That way people can really take a moment to appreciate your photo in all of its glory. If you're doing a square, it's just like you're just shooting yourself in the foot. You really are. I mean, there are people who still post square images, and that's fine and that's great, and if that works for you, then so be it. But if you're watching this video and you want to edit and post like I do, don't do squares anymore. Post the full-size image, do that. It works so much better. It looks so much better. Your page looks better. Just don't do squares. And that's pretty much it. That's how I take my photos, how I edit my photos, and how I post my photos. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, please subscribe, because I'm going to continue posting videos like this, talking about how I shoot my videos and how I shoot my photos and all that other stuff, and trying to teach you guys how you can take better photos and how you can make your photos look a bit more professional and your Instagram look more cohesive and your YouTube look a bit more you know. So if you like the video, please subscribe. Feel free to leave a comment down below and let me know what you thought. Maybe let me know some apps that you're using. Maybe I'll go check them out. Or if you'd like, let me know your Instagram handle down below. Maybe I'll go check out your Instagram and see what you're doing, and who knows, maybe we'll connect on Instagram and be able to start up a conversation about how we edit, how we take photos, and that kind of cool stuff. And please don't forget to like. When you like the video, it makes it a little bit higher up on the list when people search how to edit videos with VSCO or whatever they're gonna search. So yeah, that's pretty much it. You guys have a great remainder of your Monday, and I will plan to see you hopefully sometime tomorrow. If not tomorrow, I will see you the next day or the next day. But I will see you guys soon because I'm back. Oh, it is so good to be back making videos. You guys have no idea. Okay, I'm done. I'm done talking. Have a great day. I'll see you soon. Bye.